Thought crime, not to be confused with mind crime, as in, say, Operation Mind Crime by the band Queensryche, which is a prog metal band from the 1980s. I haven't heard their music, but I've been told that album is pretty good. But this is thought crime, which is the idea that there are some thoughts that are so heinous that they should not even be permitted to be thought. They are things that are so terrible that they are deemed illegal and dangerous even to consider. Um, I would tell you an example of thought crime, but that would be very dangerous because then you and I would both be thinking of this and we'd be potentially guilty of a crime. So instead, I'll say, these things are pretty heinous because what can happen is, for instance, if you tell somebody, don't think of pink elephants, you've immediately thought of a pink elephant. Therefore, it's best not even to consider what a thought crime is exactly, but just to know that these exist. Initially, this wasn't a problem back when legislators tried to put laws in about what things we may and may not think about, because these things couldn't be debated or put into law, because once you start considering what are things so heinous that they need to be ruled illegal, if legislators were to debate and decide, they would be potentially guilty of that crime. If police forces read about the things that they can arrest people for thinking, they would be guilty of that crime. The same with courts and lawyers and such. So the whole idea of thought crime was fairly safe until recently. That's because they've come up with an AI that's capable of figuring out, based on the ethicists of all of history, by feeding together all of that information and turning it into a set of analytics, and then asking that AI, what are thoughts that are considered so heinous that they should be illegal to even think them or consider them? The AI was able to spit out a bunch of information, which then was put into the legal docket as Chapter 94. It was still a pretty safe thing because what happened after that was that they took Chapter 94, they stuck it into the legal docket, and they never opened it again, because anyone who looks at that, if they're thinking of what's in there, they're guilty of the crime. However, things have gotten more dangerous recently because they've figured out that these particular thought patterns can be tracked to specific neural patterns. And so you could build equipment that would detect particular neural patterns. And so they used the AI imprints, turned that into the equivalent of neural thumbprints or fingerprints for particular illegal thoughts, and then have begun embedding those into all sorts of security devices and metal detectors and store detectors and traffic license plate readers. So if you're one of these offenders who's considering these illegal, heinous thoughts, you can be caught if you're thinking one of these things as you're crossing one of those detectors. And the police will take the license plate or take your picture and then come to your door and put you away. Now, initially, the idea was that because it's just a thought and it's not the deed, these thought crimes should be considered a fairly mild offense, put someone on probation. And as part of the probationary terms, they would give someone an ankle bracelet that would include a reader that could tell if you happen to be considering any of these thoughts again, just to make sure that people would be rehabilitated. Well, as it turns out, they're all chronic reoffenders. The moment that you caught someone doing a thought crime once, put that ankle bracelet on, and boom, they are recidivists, every single one. So they don't bother with the probation period anymore. We just have to take people who've been detected to be dangerous thinkers and put them away. So that's the world we live in today. And I think it's all becoming a better world as we take people who think unthinkable things and get rid of them. And hold on, there's a knock on my door. I'll be right back.